So my first question for you, the easiest one, can you say and spell your first and last name?
First name is Kayse, Kayse. Last name is Jama, Jama.
Perfect. And so my first question for you is just going to be, what are your priorities specifically for the upcoming session and for the caucus in general?
Thank you so much for the question. I think that our caucus have priorities. Number one, first of all, how do we make sure that we protect the people from Trump administration? I think it's very clear that we're in a crossroads in this country, and we want to make sure that people's civil liberties and civil rights are being protected the best we can. So that's kind of number one priority that we're focusing this session. The second priority is affordability, and I will say affordability because Oregonians are struggling. Let's put that way. And so when people are having difficulties putting food at the table, pay their bills, such as utility, rent, it's real issues. People are struggling. So one way we can do that to protect people from supporting people from cuts and making sure that we focus the core programming, state programs that meaning that protecting the core services that the state provides. The other goal is that how do we ensure that we create tax codes that are reflects the Oregon values, not the Trump administration's values and Trump himself. So what that means is that we need to close tax loopholes for the billionaires and corporations who are outside of the state. Those are some of the elements priorities that Senate Democrats are focusing, but there's definitely a list huge, but those are in a nutshell, those are the common themes that we're trying to address this session.
Mm-hmm. And what have you heard from your constituents specifically about responding to the federal immigration and their enforcement tactics?
As you know, there was a number of bills that has been proposed by both House and the Senate members. Those bills was proposed in collaboration of both the House and the Senate members, but also was vetted by the community organizations and community leaders who have deep concerns about the federal government's overreach, and particularly as relates to ICE. We have seen what's happening in Minneapolis, what's happening in Portland and Eugene. This is really a crisis moment, and I've been in this country for 27 years right now. I cannot imagine what we're facing as a country. We are really in a breaking point in this country, and so I think the goal is really how do we ensure that we protect people's civil rights and civil liberties, and that's one of the reasons that we're working this session, those priorities that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that I noticed not in those priorities was ODOT and this continuing issue that is arising with their budget. What is the next month going to look like in terms of that kind of legislation and moving that forward, especially with the deadlines that the Secretary of State said?
I think the reality is that we have to really close the gap on this budget. There's just no question about that. So I will frame this conversation as the two strategy fold: short-term strategy and long-term strategy. Short-term strategy is what I just said, which is really how do we close the gap of this budget issues, and so that's number one. And as we speak, the two co-chairs has been meeting with. There is a group of folks who will be meeting with the governor's office, legislators themselves, the two co-chairs, and really working on a solution. How do we address this short gap funding stopgap measure for the audit? That's one area, short strategy, which is, as I said, we're going to talk about this and deal with this short session. The long-term strategy is that Oregonians are expecting us to have a safe, reliable roads. They want to make sure that their mountain passes are being removed from the snow and clear the pathways so people can travel through the state. Transportation is also economic development strategy. So how do we look into the long-term strategy that this issue is not going to go away? People need to make sure that they have safe roads to travel. So those are some of the long strategies that we're talking about. And I think the governor's office is really putting, hopefully, together some sort of a work group that really, during the interim, will talk about these issues and come up some sort of a recommendations for the 2027 session, long session. Mm-hmm. So That's really where we are.
And do you agree with moving it to May?
I do, because the important piece is that the agencies, the counties, the cities, those stakeholders need to have answers so they can plan their budget. They cannot plan their budget without having answer to this question hanging over their head. So that's really the goal of really why I support the May referral.
And then my last question for you is just going to be on the potential budget cuts that we may see after the revenue forecast comes out on Wednesday. What messages can you send to our viewers about those budget cuts and how painful they may be?
The reality is that this is not something that we've been, Oregon, we've been again impacted by Trump administration's policies by giving tax cuts for the wealthy and billionaires and wealthy corporations. That's the whole root cause of this problem, that we are facing $900 million budget hole in this session. This is going to be tough. This is going to be challenging. But again, what I will tell Oregonians is that Senate Democrats really want to make sure that we protect as much as we can for core services that the state of Oregon should be providing, such as education, healthcare, economic development. Those are the transportation, public safety. Those are the core programs that this is provides that we want to protect as much as we can. The reality is that cuts are real. It's going to happen one way or another, depending on what, again, the revenue forecast shows us on February 4th when it comes out this coming week, next few days. So that's really, it is what we are dealing with. But the most important thing is that Oregonians know that we care about their issues, and we care, and Oregonians and Oregon Democrats are here to work with our colleagues across the aisle to make sure that we protect the core services in this challenging time. And of course, next biennium is going to be even more difficult, but I don't want to even go there right now. Right now, we're talking about the short session. So that's kind of like where we are in a nutshell.